Like I promised, I am going to take you to a few places and have a couple of conversations so you can really understand what we are dealing with here. I would like to recap on a couple of things that we shared yesterday. One of the things that I said yesterday was that from day one, I didn't change my story about not wanting him no more. What I meant was, from the time he made a decision to leave, I had no say in that decision of his. I had to respect the decision because that man is old enough to know what's best for him. It was really, before you break the news to me, you thought about that to yourself. You weighed the pros and cons. You thought about how I would react when you tell me. You put it into consideration that I'm pregnant. You know how it may affect my mind and my body. But you know that none of this matters because your unhappiness is just taking over. So you put yourself first. You put your mental health first. You put your happiness first. And you decide to break the news to me. After all of this went through your mind, days prior that I even know you're going through this in your mind, right? Knowing what resentment creates, I'm actually not mad at anybody, felt male or female, putting themselves first. Because what really happens when we don't is down the line, it becomes, and that time I wasn't happy, but I put you first. In all those days where I was this and I was that, but you and the baby and this and this. And that's the argument that you have for the rest of your life. This is not exclusive to one gender. Resentment in relationships create the most toxic underlying problems that is always the root of everything bad. Having that experience, having that knowledge or emotional intelligence or wisdom, anybody, friends, boyfriends, husband, because I was married before, I've been married for like 10 years. When you come to me with certain decisions that you make, I already know that you considered what you felt was best for you, what you felt was good for your mental health, what you felt was just the way to go. So I am absolutely not, for the life of me, gonna fight you for it. I am 35 years old. These people always be 40 plus. You know what you want. Or, most importantly, what you do not want. I am what you do not want. And this baby that I am carrying is what you hell the fuck don't want. So go. But no. No. Apparently, which is one of the subjects that we are going to discuss today, I was supposed to beg him to stay. And this is where the sick men come in. See, the sociopathic logic was that for once I was in a vulnerable state, being pregnant and emotional, and I needed him. I was supposed to need him. So being the strong woman that I usually am, up on my feet, I no longer can do this. I have a high-risk pregnancies. I have all those procedures and needles and appointments. So I'm supposed to beg him to stay for me. Instead, I said, go. Because I'm not trying to keep anybody in my life that don't want me around. But that was a hit to his ego. So now he's thinking, well, damn, she don't need me in that state. Fuck her. Yes, to some men, when they create those toxic situations, they want, I guess, women to prove to them how much they love them or how much they would do anything for them. And my logic was, all I did was loving you. My job being your partner is to give you a safe space. You do the same for me. Mind you, he was doing that perfectly up until then. So when you come to me with what I believe was some bullshit, I am not going to entertain it because I've never done anything to you. And because I haven't done anything wrong to you, there is nothing for me to apologize for. There is nothing for me to beg you around for. All I am doing is carrying your child that we spoke about, that I asked you for, that you gave to me. And at the time, he didn't do anything bad to me either. So I never put him in a position to apologize for anything you didn't do. So I actually thought he was my best friend. I thought that was one of the best relationships that I had. But ultimately, by attempting to use an opportunity to finally become who you are, which is a manipulative, abusive, controlling, domestic violence as N-word, now I don't want you no more. Now everything that I thought you were, you're not. So when you are leaving, instantly, I have to unlove you. So I did cry about that situation. I was sad about that situation, but I lost respect for him as a man. I lost respect for him as a father. I just didn't want him around no more. It took time for me to process who I thought he was versus realizing who he was trying to become. And when I say to become, it's not brand new to him. So it wasn't to become as he just realized that he can be this bad man. Is to become that in my life. Because shortly after that, I got to know who he's been to other women for years, and that was scary. This is when loving yourself and understanding yourself is extremely important. You have boundaries, you know what is good and bad for you, and you can say no. When you don't have love for yourself, you lose yourself in situations like this. Men like this use opportunities like mine to confuse you. They do everything they can to alter your sense of reality because you don't know yourself and ultimately don't love yourself and have no boundaries. This will have you walking around asking them to show you what you did wrong, asking them to help you be better. Please don't go, please don't leave. And the whole time they're just watching you walking around crazy for nothing. As crazy as it sounds, things like this turn these men on. It gets them excited. It kind of refuel the battery. It pumps them up. It makes them feel strong. It makes them feel in control. This is so important. Like, you need to know what you bring to any table. You need to know that sometimes you may be the table. When people blame you for things you didn't do, you can recognize it. Especially when you are a person that comes from a place of peace and a place of love. You gotta remove yourself. As I said previously, there is 8 billion of us. You're gonna find somebody. Chill. My name is Miss McCary. The father of my child left me when I was 3 months pregnant. And when when he left me, I was allegedly, not knowing that I was going to be a victim of domestic violence moving forward, I was allegedly supposed to beg him to stay. My common sense didn't do that. I was like, he's old enough to make decisions for himself. He knows that I'm pregnant and he doesn't care about my situation right now. He wants to go, so I told him to go. Of course, I have moments when I was emotional. Of course, I cry about it, but ultimately, I didn't stop him from leaving. And I never contacted him to change his mind or anything to do with that. What that caused is he started damaging his own property, teaming up with other people to hurt me, which led to me seeking a restraining order against him. At the time everything started, I was halfway through my pregnancy. My first court date against them started in about September. I gave birth to my son that year, August. In court and under oath, he said that he did not want this child, that he had 2 children with somebody else. They are the only children that he would acknowledge. And I said to the court that I agree with that decision because I got to know him outside of our relationship, how much of a bad father he was. Eventually, I broke things off with that woman, and it was just too much. She came into my life asking me if our children could have a relationship because she claimed that she didn't want my dislike for him now to stop the kids to get together. Ended up later on pressing charges for harassment, criminal charges against her because it turned out that she did the most. She's just mentally unstable. Professionals told me was, although that man said a lot of things on the oath against him fathering my child, when the petty comes with these men out of not having control over you or have tried to have control over you, intimidate you, and that failed, they will basically come back around pulling string through that child against you. So I went to the court and I said to them, well, that person and I had an agreement. It shouldn't be around my child. So he expressed himself not wanting to. And after getting to know him and discussing certain things with people that have known him for 20 plus years, I basically agree. I agree that he's not a good person. He's not a good father, not a good man. So that's not who I want for my son. So granted, he doesn't want my son. Neither do I. And I believe it's an agreement. So I'm in court and I'm saying to the judge, we've been in court for 2 years now for different reasons. And this man has been very vocal and apologetic
unapologetic about not wanting this child with or without a DNA test, because from the start he knew that I was his child. He also made a confession that I asked him to have a baby because I was sharing, wants to have one more child, and that he agreed to give me that child, but he felt like the child was a gift to me and he shouldn't be liable to pay child support. So he confessed to knowing all this time the circumstances behind the baby making, that is the father, etc., etc. The abuser, because I could call him the father of my child, but I'm gonna call him the abuser, decided to say to the court, I haven't had a chance to speak with Ms. McCary since everything went down, and I would like to speak to her. Excuse me, sir, no, you cannot speak to me. Because although the restraining order didn't continue, we shouldn't communicate. That's very obvious that I would not want to speak to you. They know that there is a history of domestic violence. They know that I do not want to speak to that man. Mind you, I specifically said that I don't mind him starting a relationship with this child as long as it's supervised. But myself and him have no business being in contact. Put something in place where they can start their own relationships and have people watch that over. He also admitted he don't know nothing about his child. He asked for help to bond with my kid. He was like, this child is going to be 2 years old. I've never was handed over a 2 years old. And I said, well, since he's asking for supervision and help in his own way, and I am saying that I am okay for supervision, especially after our history, technically the agreement here is for him to have the child supervised, and we just have to discuss the days and the time and so forth. Regardless of the evidence given to these judges, regardless of, the things that they said themselves about not wanting parenting, it's like it doesn't matter. He said that himself. It's not me accusing him of. It's not me saying that for him. It's not me choosing that for him. He said that himself. How does that not come into play? He is using the system to come to me because he lost court cases against me before. He spent over $20,000 worth of court fees. He's about to spend all this money for the next 18 years of his life. And most importantly, when he wanted to manipulate me into begging him to stay at the very beginning, I never did. So his ego is bruised. It's a lot of loss financially. He's not winning anything. So the only way you can piss me off or trying to be in my life or aggravate me is through my child. Because you don't care for this child. It's the mother of his children, because he has children with her that sees him every so often, weekends or whatever. Allegedly, according to what he said, he had like 50-50 with that woman. They don't live together. They're not in a relationship. Although they lied that they were at the time for the sake of testifying together against me. She wants this man bad. As much as he's been violent, as much as sexually pressing stuff on her, as much as he puts his hands on her, as much as whatever it is that he has done to her, she just wants that man. So whatever he asks her to do, she will do. And I expressed that to the court. I said, this alone is an issue. Because if, other than the charges that I have against her for harassment and stalking, the fact that she is that type of woman means that anything that happened in that household that he does to my kid, she will not tell nobody. And if somebody tells, she would lie that it's not true. So my son is just not safe around those people. Because the spotlights are on him, the smarter things for him to do is to be on his best behavior and claiming that whatever he said before is no longer, that was in the past or blah. Like, that's crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hear you out. And I mean, with all that, right, obviously you want to seek legal counsel at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, y'all. It's gonna be okay. Like, I believe it's gonna be okay. It's a lot of us going through similar stuff, and ultimately, we just want our kids to be good. Every children deserve to have both parents in their lives, but they also deserve to live a long, healthy life. And oftentimes, I feel parents, men or women, it's just whoever the crazy one is, don't want to let go of the attachment they have to the other parent. I am not saying to that person, don't father your kid. I am saying to the law that this person is insane. Let the law know that if anything happened to my kid after the warning, after the evidence, after everything that transpired keeps being thrown in your face, While we discuss accountability after the fact, the kid is already dead. People are already injured. The bullshit is already done. I actually real life know women that had to hand over their children to a parent that had proof was abusive, like mark pictures, like as in real life injuries, like you're stripping the baby naked and you see like black and blue on the kid, and they had to hand over the child to that person. A court order that will tell you the mother that have seen the kid with the bruises on from the father, the law tell you go to X, Y, and Z precinct, X, Y, and Z police station, and you shall, under the law, under my direction, give your kid over to that man in that location.
While we connect your call. The person that I have legal issues with basically changed his mind throughout the proceedings. I had a temporary restraining order against that man.